Welcome to the Ohio Rams Show, number 294.
Hi, I'm Megan Hakkinen with the Ohio Rams Show, talking with Keith Savage. So Keith is an ultra-endurance cyclist from the UK, currently living in Hong Kong. He's been biking since he was able to walk. Some of his achievements include the UK coast to coast, London to Paris, 2 times around at the World 24-Hour Time Trial Championships, and Revolve 24 twice as well in Australia. He's a Zwift junkie, a dated nerd, I guess. I hope I'm correct in saying that.
Yeah, that's fair.
And he has an amazing partner who supports him throughout all his foolhardy endeavors on the bike. He's also signed up to pedal 950 virtual miles in the race across the West next week, starting June 16th. So thanks for joining us, Keith.
My pleasure.
It's exciting. We're crossing many time zones to make this happen.
Yeah, we are, aren't we? So what time is it here? Midday in Hong Kong?
And it's 9 p.m. in Kelowna, British Columbia.
Nice.
So can you tell us a little bit about your background and like how you got into cycling?
Yeah, I mean, I started cycling very young. Parents kind of put me onto a little wheeled one and just never really stopped, I guess. Went through a phase of a few years mountain biking and then picked up road biking or road cycling after university, purely because I'd kind of financially couldn't afford to keep falling off mountain bikes while I was at uni. So I'd kind of stopped doing that. And then I borrowed a friend's road bike, went out there on the mountain bike gear looking ridiculous, did a few summer evening rides and absolutely loved it. And this was on like a single speed Specialized Langster. So I bought myself a road bike, it was too small for me, Specialized delay, and that got nicked within 2 weeks of ownership, which kind of gave me an excuse to get a bike that actually fitted. So I got a Bianchi C2C, and that's kind of where it started. I rode for a year just enjoying riding a road bike, and then did an event with some friends, did a coast to coast in the UK, which is it's about 160 miles from Whitehaven to Sunderland, so it's across the northern belt. But we did it over 3 days, and I just remember thinking this has to be doable in a day, and then gave it a go, and it turned out it was doable in a day. It was kind of by a long stretch my biggest day out on a bike, but I absolutely loved it, and I kind of sat there and planned things, and this was before I had a power meter and before I really had a clue what I was doing. And then I did a London to Paris, which was the kind of the next step up. And then basically I rode more and more. And then a friend of mine, the year I moved to Hong Kong, a friend of mine did a World 24, and I'd kind of half-heartedly agreed to do it with him, but it turned out that year just I had way too much on my plate with relocating, so vowed to do it the following year. And obviously there's nothing more satisfying or kind of more it gives you more of a prod than basically wanting to beat one of your friends. So thanks for the push, Laurie, and that kind of kicked it off. And then I loved the travel to go and do it, but I also just really like doing the riding, the mental side of it's something a bit weird. I can't quite yet get my head around it being a sensible thing to do. It still feels like a stupid hobby, but just it's the benchmarks, it's the learning new things every time, and as you mentioned, I'm a bit of a data nerd. I love all the looking at the power and my calorie consumption and that kind of thing. So it's just something that I can really get into, I guess. And I think because in Hong Kong I can't have a car, and I've always grown up with a car to play with. Can't have that here, so I can live it out through bikes instead.
So what are some lessons you learned from the first time you went to the World 24-Hour Time Trials or Revolve 24 that you applied for your second time around to those events? Because your numbers really improved the second time around.
So. Basically changed absolutely everything that I did from the first one. in the second one.
Okay.
The first one I did was very much a never done anything like it before, so let's just kind of suck it and see. So flew 15 hours Hong Kong to Los Angeles on Wednesday night, and then arrived 11 p.m. Wednesday night in LA. Drove 4 hours to Brago, so got there at 3-4 o'clock in the morning. On Thursday, woke up 6 o'clock Thursday morning, 7 o'clock Thursday morning, with no idea what time it was really. It's an incredible sunset to look out on, and it was all a bit exciting. Jumped in the car to go and get food, basically, for the race. But the nearest place to go and get food from in Brago is Palm Springs, which is 100 miles away. I'm sure somebody will correct me on that, and that there's somewhere 10 miles away. But there's a Walmart in Palm Springs, so we drove there. A 200-mile round trip to go and get food the day after landing and the day before a 24-hour race is not something I'd advise. But also going around the Walmart, which I'd never been to a Walmart before, so I was astonished at. I don't know if I need to eat car tyres, but there's car tyres. And spent hundreds of dollars on stuff. And it was like, okay, gherkins, do I need gherkins? I'll get some gherkins. And pancakes. And basically this trolley full of stuff that then drove back, kind of laid it all out and ate none of it during the race.
Not a single gherkin? Not one.
No, in my head I thought, gherkins, salty, might need that, but it turns out gherkins were not on the list of things that I wanted to eat during the race. It wasn't a good way of planning nutrition. So nutrition, that was a big change, and travel. So the second time I did it, got to California 5 days out, and we actually, to say thank you to my girlfriend for sitting in the back of a car for 20 hours preparing food and stuff. We did a road trip down from San Francisco, so we made it like a 5-day trip, and then stayed with friends in Newport Beach, who was also doing the race, and then went to Brago. So it was just a much more stretched out, much better planned. So kind of arrived in Brago, rested and feeling good. What else? The bike setup. It was a road bike with aero bars that I did it on the first year. Second year, I put a TT bar set up on the front and had actually practiced on it. Apart from that, the bike was pretty much the same. I think planning is the main bit. So it was just about making sure that I was there in better time, knew what the weather was going to do, which obviously took us all by surprise. It was freezing, so hadn't planned that bit well enough at all. And just having a better plan of, okay, I'm going to want this at this point, this at this point, and also I had some friends came as well and sort of said to them, this is what I'm going to want. At the time of needing it, I'm probably not going to want it, so please just give it to me, tell me to have it, and just make sure I get on with it, make sure I'm drinking, and if I get ratty or irritated after 19 hours, it's nothing personal. But the guys were amazing. So I was really lucky to have some great friends. And I added 18 miles or something to my previous total, rode an extra 4.5 hours. So totally different. And then hopefully, we'll see if this year happens. But I've been working with Gareth at Matt Bottrell Performance Coaching in the UK, and he's done an amazing job in terms of helping me develop the power and get better planning for how I'm actually going to ride the bike. The first year, the course in Brago is pretty flat with a 2% gradient at one bit, which turns into a 25% gradient by the 19th hour. I don't quite know how they do that overnight, but it's definitely, I remember riding up there, big ring at the front, little ring at the back, not a care in the world at the start, and by the end of it, the first year, first gear, granny ring, pelling up there with Christoph Strasser going like he hadn't even noticed that it was going up. But then, so I was going really slowly up the hill, and then stamping on the pedals to go down the other side. And Gareth was like, you know, do the opposite of that, and it will definitely help you out. So, yeah, I've got for this year, I've got a better race plan. My FTP's up about 20%, all thanks to Gareth. I've got a new bike which I cannot wait to ride. It's a proper TT bike with disc wheels, and yeah, so I'm really excited to actually get that out on the road. I'd like to say 500, but I'm going to say 480 this year, but 500 at some point. I think that covers learnings in a real nutshell. I could talk for days about how much I've learned, so I'm trying to make it a bit more concise.
Well, I think that like so many of the things you said resonate with me. And when you talked about you know, telling your friends, your support crew, you know, how you're not going to be the same person later in the race as you start out to be, and just sort of have that self-awareness is really important, and kind of a key point. I think if you're doing these events and you have a support crew, you have to brief them on the monster that you're soon going to become, and let them know that don't take offense. I just turned it this way, you know.
Yeah, and I think you get into a mindset where I'm in a race, so I want everything quickly and everything has to be right. So I don't want to have to ask twice for something. But at the same time, you probably know more about what I need at that point. Unless I say, I'm freezing, get me another jacket, you know what food I need. You've got it prepared. So please just make sure you're giving me the thing that is prepared. And as long as it's planned out and people accept that you're not in the right place to make decisions after 20 hours on a bike. So the decisions that have already been made are the ones to stick to.
Yes. Unless
there's a real change in the plan or something completely different has happened, just kind of go with the plan. You know, last year we had an extra stop to put all the cold weather clothing on because it was 0 and we'd expected it to be 12. So there was a bit of, I need to borrow a jacket. And then, so that meant there had to be an extra stop in the morning to take it all off again. But you know, some of these things you just have to roll with it. So.
So speaking of rolling with it, how has the global COVID-19 pandemic impacted your training? Like, it's, you know, changed all the races, but yeah, has it changed how you train on a day-to-day level or not?
Honestly, no. I suppose we've been really lucky in Hong Kong in that we haven't had a lockdown. There hasn't really been any restriction on travel at all. There was a period where you couldn't go to the beach with more than 3 friends. But other than that, nothing's really changed. So my outdoor time trial place, the place to go and practice, the only flat bit basically in Hong Kong is at Disneyland. So there's a loop of about 5 miles around the Disneyland car parks. So I go and do 6 or 7 hours there, you know, set pace or whatever. But that hasn't changed. So I've done lots of work on Zwift, but I was doing that anyway. The only change really, as you mentioned, has been that the races aren't there. So I got to a week before the Revolve 24 in Australia this year, which I've been kind of building up to for 6 months because I won the UK one and I came second last year in Australia. So I was going with a hope of winning maybe this one. And the week before, it got cancelled. And that, you know, it was absolutely the right decision, and then all the travel started cancelling as well. But to get that close to an event with the physical training and also the mental kind of building up to it, to then have the rug pulled from under, that was actually I think I probably took it worse than I expected to. I probably took it a bit worse than I want to admit to, because I didn't ride the bike for a week. There was just this kind of nuts to it. I put all that training in, all that effort in, and I didn't say anything to Gareth, my coach, until I got a message from him saying, "Are you all right, mate?" Because I've had sort of 4 red training sessions on Training Peaks, and I just messaged him saying, "Look, it's been cancelled. Head's gone a bit. I'll be back on it next week. And he responded to that by totally changing the training. So it's okay, the next event should be October, the World 24. Let's focus on the power, because I've been doing a lot of longer rides. So let's focus on the power. So it suddenly became like nothing more than about 2.5, 3 hours at the weekends, and then the 3 that I do, 3 sessions during the week, 2 at the weekend, with 1 major one on Saturday. But it was all focused on intensity. So I suppose, was that a direct result of COVID? Yeah, I suppose so. But I haven't had to shift in terms of suddenly only ever riding indoors versus only ever riding outdoors. It's actually suited me quite well, because it was how I already rode. As I say, the only flat bit in Hong Kong is an hour from where I live, and it's like 5 miles. So to do a 120-mile session, that gets a bit tedious. So sometimes actually doing that on Zwift, rather than having to do the hour out and back on the basically on the metro line, it's quite nice. So yeah, nothing's really changed in a nutshell. It was just a shift in focus, because we suddenly had the luxury of time from one race to the next.
Would you like to talk a bit about the mental challenge of ultra distance cycling? Like, what goes through your head on these?
I think so. The race bit is easier to deal with, I think. The race, I'm kind of, you wanted to be here, you trained to be here, so kind of get on with it. This is where it all becomes worthwhile. And sure, I always find the bit around 3 to 4 o'clock the hardest bit, kind of just before dawn. But the moment the sun starts coming up again, it's like a reinvigorating. The training rides are a bit different. Yeah, when you're 8 months out from a race and you've got to do 7 or 8 hours, again, as I say, if it's on a 5-mile loop, that's quite tough. So I tend to find my first couple of hours are, this feels really good, feeling strong, great. 3rd hour, I start questioning the will to live. 4th hour is usually when I actually, so I start writing stand-up comedy in my head. Now, I've shared this with a couple of people, but I'm not about to now. But I find that completely distracts me for another hour, and then I can count down the last couple of hours. It's just that middle bit where that's the tough bit for me, to try and just to try and keep the power going and not stop. Especially when here it gets really hot, so I can be having to do an 8-hour session and it's 33, 34 degrees. And that's hard work. So yeah, it's just a case of, it's like a get into it and then distract myself, and then I know I'm on the way out.
Do you have any tips for people hoping to cultivate more mental grit? Distract yourself sounds like a good one.
I think have a distraction. Remember why you're doing it, but also don't focus too much on how far you've gone or how far you've got left. Just focus on the next bit. I can do the next 5 minutes, I can do the next 10 minutes. How am I feeling right now? And that's got me through a lot. It takes away the kind of the weighing on your mind of, I've already got 100 miles in my legs, or I've got 200 miles to go, or whatever. Just thinking, how do I feel right now? And can I continue? And if every 5 minutes you're thinking, yeah, I'm fine, I can continue, you're going to get to the end. If you get to a point where you're saying, I've got 2 hours to go and I just can't do this, then that's when it starts getting difficult. So ride in the moment.
Sometimes all that information can be our enemy, right? When we are thinking too much about the past or the future, or I can't possibly sustain this. And I think you're right. If you think about just being in the moment, the next 5 minutes, sometimes our bodies are able to kind of conquer our minds in a sense, and that's pretty incredible and very cool. Yeah,
absolutely. And something that I learned, I don't tend to do it on flat, but when I'm climbing, it was actually something I learned ski mountaineering, is just count steps or pedal strokes, but either go 1 to 10 and then start again, or 1 to 100 and then start again, because to be honest, I find a lower number works, because you get to 100 and think, oh, I've done 100. But just doing 10, you lose count of the number of times you counted to 10, but you're focusing on the counting bit rather than pedaling. And it just, I don't know, it's something that works for me when I'm doing one of those sort of 40 RPM first gear climbs. It just helps break it down a bit.
Well, I'll give it a try next time I'm on a tough long ride and let you know how it turns out. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to following your race.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, it's 1,000 miles on the indoor trainer is it's completely outside anything that I've done before. I've got a target in mind. It might be way off base, but we'll see how it goes, and I'll keep you informed.
Thanks for joining us, Keith. And this is Megan Hakkinen for the Ohio Ram Show signing off. Let's give them a wave.
Nerdy wave time.
This is Gregory Zuber, thanking you for watching and sharing.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.